Two transfer portal commitments apiece. On today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast, we're explaining how the Louisville men's basketball and football teams got better for next season. That said, stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. As always, I want to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder that the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. The men's basketball team got two big-time transfer portal commitments on Thursday. Long Beach State forward Aboubacar Traore and Wisconsin point guard Chucky Hepburn are both Cardinals. Pat Kelsey's team got considerably better on Thursday. We'll explain why. And the football team, two transfer portal commitments. Dan Foster Jr., Texas State inside linebacker, and Myles Jernigan, California outside linebacker. What will both bring to the Cardinals defense? Well, we will discuss that at the conclusion of the show. We mentioned how this week is huge for the men's basketball program. And we talked about 5 players. We talked about Wesley Yates, Aboubacar Traore, Chucky Hepburn, Jaden Quaintance, and Ben Humrickhouse. All had some sort of development in their respective recruitments. And we were on commitment watch for Aboubacar Traore. Chucky Hepburn made it to campus on Wednesday evening. He was expected to take a visit. Both of them committed to the Cardinals program on Thursday, pretty much Thursday late morning, and then Thursday in the middle of the afternoon. Ultimately, huge additions to the team. Chucky Hepburn from Wisconsin started 103 games for the Badgers in his 3 seasons in Madison. He averaged 9.2 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, 3.9 assists, and 42.9% shooting from the field as a junior. The year prior, the statistical numbers were a little bit better, 12.2 points per game, but he played behind A.J. Storr and Connor Essigan this season, so was sort of the tertiary scoring option, which I would expect him to be at Louisville as well. But what he brings to the table is not just scoring. He is a fantastic passer with an over 20% assist rate, even though his numbers of, 3.9 assists per game are not terrible. The assist rate percentage numbers would lead you to believe that he's actually a better passer. Does a good job of creating his own offense. Makes some clutch shots. He's made clutch shot after clutch shot at Wisconsin. And like I said, you can't discount that he has started 103 games at the Power 5 level. So it's not like you're getting just some random rotational player. He is, put it this way, you don't start 103 games by being average. Very, very good player. I don't think that there's one thing he does particularly great outside of what we're about to talk about, but he does a lot of things really well. One of the things I would say that he does great is on-ball defense. Hepburn has never once averaged under a steal per game in college. This season, those numbers jumped a little bit higher. He averaged 2.1 steals per game. The 6'2" native of Omaha, Nebraska, is a pest on the defensive side of the ball. Great point of attack defender that can switch between the 1 or the 2. Has active hands, solid footwork laterally, great instincts, and a fantastic understanding of what needs to be done on the defensive side in the half court. A lot of the equation on defense is effort, and Hepburn gives maximum effort. And I think that this is one hell of an addition to the Cardinals' backcourt. Chucky Hepburn will likely be the presumed starter for the Cardinals at point guard. Now, where the rest of the rotation fills out, we'll try to talk about that a little bit more in the next segment. But great passing, solid scoring option, clutch shot-making ability, leadership, veteran experience, great defense, solid in transition. There are a lot of benefits to adding a player like Chucky Hepburn to your team, one of the best point guards in the portal to date. Or remaining, I should say. Not remaining anymore, but at the time, remaining. The Cardinals also brought in Aboubacar Traore from Long Beach State, the 6'5" forward from the Ivory Coast, visited the Cardinals campus on an official visit at the conclusion of last week and left without making a commitment. A lot of people were wondering, well, what's happening? There's a lot of radio silence. It seemed beginning on Monday, the confidence started to grow and grow. And it felt like it was just a matter of when and not if Traore was going to join the program. He ended up doing so. Now, the only thing that Aboubacar does not do well is shoot threes. He shot 8.7% from behind the arc this season, just not necessarily a three-point shooter whatsoever. And it is what it is. People wonder, well, how does that fit for a Pat Kelsey offense? Because he does legitimately everything else at the very least above average. Offensively, not having a great perimeter game, he averaged 12 points per game, 8.4 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 52% from the field, 67% from the free throw line. Great at driving to the basket. A lot of his attempts will come from around the rim. If you wonder how that scoring arsenal is translating to the Power 5, he had 14 and 15 against Arizona. He had some big-time games this season, 28 and 7 against UC Irvine. He had multiple games in which he flirted with a triple-double. Just affects the game in a ton of different ways. Not only is he good in transition, utilizing his strength at 6'5" and 195 pounds, but he can take it to the rim and finish through contact. Scoring is only one part of the equation. Like I mentioned, does everything else well. Over 10% assist rate, 4.5 assists, does a great job of getting his teammates involved, a flashy passer at times, one that just makes the players around him better. The ball gets in his hands, and he already has an idea of what he wants to do with it, and he plays with a high motor and a ton of energy, passion, and tenacity. Great on the boards, 8.4 rebounds per game. One aspect of Pat Kelsey's team is that there is a focus and an emphasis on rebounding the ball, both on the offensive glass and defensively. Traore is proficient in both. He plays a lot larger than he actually is. He's only about 6'5". And you watch him play, which I watched him play against Arizona, and I'm like, there's no way this guy's only 6'5". He plays a lot taller than he actually is. And then not to mention defensively can switch, truthfully, probably between the 1 and the 4. Great on-ball defender, point of attack defender. It's sort of becoming a trend for this program, recruiting, and how Pat Kelsey is prioritizing certain skill sets. We're starting to see how, Pat Kelsey's wanting to create this roster centered around a couple of skills. Traore prioritizes a ton of them outside of shooting. I'm not sure that Aboubacar is going to start. I think ultimately he'll probably be a high-energy player off the bench, which is no shame because you need players that are going to come in and give you a spark off the bench. Reminds me a ton of Dwayne Sutton without the three-point shooting ability. High-energy guy, plays with a ton of passion, will dive after every loose ball, give you 110% maximum effort at all times, while also being great at driving to the basket, solid defender, and a great passer for his role. So Chucky Hepburn and Aboubacar Traore are two very, very good additions to this program. I think that Louisville got considerably better on Thursday. We're going to explain exactly how here coming up in just a moment after we tell you about our friends over at Monopoly Go. Look, I've been told time and time again that I'm a competitive person. I have a competitive side. We all do. My competitive side is a huge fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big time money. The best part is you can mess with your friends. You can charge them rent. You can heist their vaults. And the leaderboards show you who the largest Monopoly tycoon is. It's not just the competitiveness that makes me love it. You can also team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. Get in the game. Join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. Also want to take this time to tell you about our friends over at Gametime. I'm going to a Cincinnati Reds game coming up here in a couple weeks, and I was really getting a little frustrated on what ticket service to use, and I almost just threw in the towel and said, screw it. But I decided to go to Gametime, and I used the code LOCKEDONCollege, got $20 off of my first purchase, and I got to see my views from the seats. They had some of the best deals out there, and I just realized that Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. When you go to the app, you can toggle the all-in pricing feature that shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. That is the biggest pet peeve of mine. Look at all of these benefits and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Cardinal fans, thanks again for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. If you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV and you have to turn it down due to all the shouting, make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. I think by default, adding two more players to the team ultimately makes the Louisville men's basketball team for next season better. But the question is now, well, how much better did they get? You look at the roster currently. You have Javon Hadley, Terrence Edwards Jr., Rain Smith, James Scott. We're going to put Ali Khalifa over to the side because he's not going to play this season. So you have those four players. You have Corin Johnson as well. So you have 5 players on the team. You add 2 more. And when asked the question, how much better did the team get? Considerably. Well, how do you quantify that? Really hard to make a quantitative statement at the moment because you only have, at this point, 7 players for next year's team. You still have some work to do. You have 5 more scholarships remaining. Like the addition of Corin Johnson, these 2 are a great step in the right direction towards creating a roster that is going to compete for an NCAA tournament berth next season. We start with Chucky Hepburn. Adding a veteran point guard with 103 games started in the Big Ten under his belt, well, that's incredible. Because that player's not coming here to come off the bench. He's going to start for the Cardinals. The only question is, what does the rotation look like outside of Hepburn. Hepburn brings you everything you need in a veteran guard. You have the experience, you have the ability to score, great passing, great in transition, solid decision maker, great on-ball defender. So you improve offensively. You get a true point guard, which you did not have. Corin Johnson, more of a combo guard that can play the point. You get a true point guard and potentially the best defender already. Hepburn is going to be extremely solid. It would not surprise me if he is the most valuable player on next year's team. And that is no disrespect to any of the other players. It is not an indication of how I view them as players. It is an indication and a testament to how important I believe Hepburn is going to be. Something we're also forgetting is, I think the main thing that excites me the most about this edition is that for a team that has 13 new faces that have never played with well, I guess Rain Smith and James Scott have played with each other like these guys have played with each other, but 13 new faces on Louisville's team that had never played in a Cardinals uniform. You bring in a veteran point guard to sort of steady the ship. I think it's going to help with cohesiveness and chemistry on the court that's going to be able to step up and lead by example when adversity hits, because inevitably it will. So adding a point guard of Hepburn's caliber, I think raises the ceiling, because in March, you win by great guard play. And having that veteran leadership, a player that has played for a good program. Wisconsin has been very good over the past couple of years. It's not like he's playing for a bad Power 5 team and he's having these, having this experience. He's playing for a very, very good team in Wisconsin. Aboubacar Traore, on the other hand, comes from a mid-major program in Long Beach State. Has spent 3 seasons there, has gotten better each and every season. He's sort of going to be a glue guy, in my opinion. I'm really excited for this addition because he affects this team in more ways than just one. He can't really shoot all that well, but he's going to be instrumental when it comes to transition, when it comes to rebounding, which that is something that you have to focus on. Rebounding is key. In the past 5 seasons, 4 of the years, Pat Kelsey's offense is featured in the top 20 in Ken Palm's offensive rebounding percentage. Traore has that skill set. Great defender, switchable on defense, versatile, can play multiple positions. So this move increases versatility both on offense and defense. It gives you an option at the 3 or the 4, probably the 4, but solid effort guy, solid glue guy, plays with a ton of energy and passion. The motor is outstanding. And at the very least, you get a player in the rotation that can do a couple different things that lead to winning ball games. Like, these skills are conducive to winning. Just because he can't shoot threes, not every player on the team is going to shoot threes. You're not just going to be the Golden State Warriors. You're going to play fast, which I feel like plays into Traore's skill set. He utilizes his speed and his size and strength and athleticism to create a rare mismatch for opposing players. So what you're doing is you're taking a solid nucleus of 5 players. You are adding 2 starting caliber players. I think Hepburn 100% starts. I think Traore is a rotational guy that's going to come off the bench, and there is no shame in that. But you are getting a player that literally just averaged 12, 8, and 5 on 52% shooting to come off the bench. You are creating a great problem to have if you are Pat Kelsey. So how much better did you get? Considerably. You go from 5 solid options to now 7 and 5 scholarships remaining, and you're putting yourself in a better position where we're going to look back on this roster and be like, man, Pat Kelsey was in his bag. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do with the remaining scholarships. So of the 5 that we talked about earlier in the week, 2 have committed. Will we get another commitment this week to be determined. It's going to be interesting to see where Louisville turns in the Jaden Quaintance recruitment. What's going to go on with Ben Humrickhouse? Is Wesley Yates seriously considering LSU as much as Louisville? TBD. So we will deliver these recruiting updates when we get them. However, the men's basketball program, not the only program that got some big-time news, and the football team needed some good news. They had gotten hit in the portal. 2 solid rotational pieces added at the very least. We'll discuss what adding Dan Foster Jr. and Myles Jernigan means to the Cardinals defense next season. And we're going to do that after we tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NHL and NBA playoffs continue. Baseball's in the full swing, and FanDuel continues to be your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots, home runs, to slam dunks, all in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Louisville has really gotten hit by the second wave of the transfer portal movement. Since it opened up on April 16th, multiple even potential starting level guys have left. Penny Boone, Jalen Alderman, Wesley Walker, Tyler Barron. It's not ideal, and you shouldn't panic. It's not ideal, but Louisville, the checks aren't bouncing. There's not turmoil. Ultimately, if what is said is being true by those, on the radio, like Drew Diener and company, that it might be a solid addition by subtraction, but I'm not here to get into that hypothetical. We're here to see how Louisville is going to address the needs. Well, Louisville has tried to do that on the defensive side of the ball. They got 2 commitments on Thursday. It began adding California outside linebacker Myles Jernigan, 6'3" from Grand Prairie, Texas, spent the past 4 seasons at California. I think ultimately will either have 1 or 2 seasons remaining. I'm not sure how the red shirt is going to work in 2021, but 2022 had a breakout season, 51 total tackles, 4 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Took a step back in 2023, 23 tackles, 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 pass deflection. The 235-foot outside linebacker would project to be a Leo, playing in the Mason Reiger role. Reiger is battling injury. I'm not sure if we're going to see him this season for Louisville. And then with Tyler Barron going elsewhere, you need to add at least 1 more edge player. Jernigan will be able to at least be a rotational player in this in this defense. He visited Kansas State before making his way to Louisville, canceled his visits to UCF and Duke, and committed to the Cardinals. For Jernigan, it is all about speed. He is quick off the edge, uses that speed to get around opposing offensive linemen and get into the opposing backfield. When he hits hard. It is like a heat-seeking missile getting through the line. Has to improve his footwork and technique, but he has some Power 5 experience, and I think it's a solid addition for, at the very least, a rotational role. I'm not sure if he's going to be a starting level guy, but at the very least, he's going to be in the 2 deep, in my opinion. Jernigan has a skill that feels like Louisville is wanting to prioritize, and that is speed. Louisville wants to play fast, especially on defense, and adding an edge that will be the benefactor of playing opposite of Ashton Gelati and outside of Thor Griffith. He will get some good looks, and if he's able to be a pass rush specialist, which ultimately he might end up being, you have to feel pretty decent for this as a as a depth piece. I'm not sure if Myles will be a starting level guy, but like I said, high floor player that will be able to affect this team in some ways. The Cards also added a transfer from Texas State. Dan Foster Jr. spent his first 3 seasons at Marshall before transferring to Texas State, where he had a breakout season. At Marshall, he didn't have a season where he had over 10 tackles in any of his 3 years in Huntington. And then the 6'3" junior from Riviera Beach, Florida, transferred down to Texas State and had 52 total tackles and 1 forced fumble. Can he play at the Power 5 level? I believe he can. I think that his skill set reminds me sort of like James Burgess, where The pursuit is incredible. The tackling technique, the speed in which he plays with, the sideline to sideline linebacker that Foster is. I think that at the very least, he's going to be a rotational piece. And I think that's what he's going to be relied upon to do. When the Cardinals lost Jalen Alderman, I said that it would make me feel better if they at least numerically speaking, they traded off 1 for 1. You might not get a player as good as Jalen Alderman, but you still get a player in the linebacking core. Stanquan Clark and TJ Quinn are probably going to be the starters inside. Geronte Davis, the transfer from Texas A&M by way of Jackson State, will be in the mix. Maybe freshman Trent Carter from Jacksonville, Florida, could also see some snaps. Maybe Jeff Brom looks to push Antonio Watts more so on the interior and play inside linebacker. But I think Foster will be a solid addition to the depth equation that Louisville has really sort of put them in a tough situation, because if one inside linebacker goes down, you're in a very, very tough spot. So I like this move to add a guy like Foster, who showed this season the speed, again, needing to play with speed and that pursuit and technique and being able to defend the run, which I think Foster is good at. He has shown instances to where he can get out in the open field and defend opposing running backs out of the backfield, but most of his impact is going to be on the run, in my opinion. So you look at the depth at both the edge and the inside linebacker spot, and it's not really – it doesn't encourage you, especially at edge, where I don't think Louisville is done adding. Jamon Tapp from Texas is supposed to be on campus this weekend or later this week. I guess this weekend because it's Thursday evening when we're recording this. But all signs are pointing to Louisville adding another depth piece, and with the NIL budget to do so, you would feel like they can make a decent splash on this team. So with scholarships available, I have no problem with Louisville adding either of these two players, good players at their last stop. They see some skills in both of them that they feel like they can work with, and ultimately those players translate some of that skill set to success at the ACC level. So if you made me pick right now what their role would be, I think that they are both rotational pieces that are used in certain situations and formations and can be stepping up into starting roles if injuries occur. But as of right now, I think that I believe that they are going to be in the 2 deep. It's just a matter of what's going to happen in the offseason, and these are going to be 2 players that I'm focusing on moving forward. But it's nice to get some good news, and we're welcoming Dan and Myles both to Card Nation, and we'll see where Louisville goes after this. I think that they're definitely going to continue to address some needs in the next couple weeks, and hopefully the Cardinals can get back to a spot to where maybe people viewed them before some of the transfers. But do not panic. Trust Jeff Brom. Trust Pat Kelsey. It was a good day Thursday, and hopefully we have a great weekend. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here very soon.